Rick Amato on Intelligent Talk 1170 KCBQ.
Okay, we're back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, for our final segment here. Well, I'll take one more break, I guess about 45. And I've really had a rewarding week here. You know, I'm not a career politician. I'm not we don't have a speechwriter, Jim. Can you attest to the following, that we don't have a speechwriter?
You do it yourself.
We don't have any handlers.
You answer your own phone.
We don't have any front men. You know, we don't have people that go to the event 20 minutes before I get there to make sure that things are right or wrong. So this is a pure volunteer effort.
And you're up against a lot of people who do have those things.
Yeah. Now, what was your impression at the debates the other day? I know you were there and you got a chance to observe. I mean, I was fairly impressed because as the room started to fill up, the room was completely full.
Yes, it was.
And then on the side, I was amazed how many TV cameras and recording devices and all sort of thing there. So it's okay. This is big time here. We're not
it really
is.
Yeah. This is the beginning of it for you, really.
And when you saw the incumbent congressman asked to give his opening statement, and he sits there at the chair, did you have any immediate reaction, or what was your thinking?
Well, I wasn't there yet. I was outside because I'd gotten the invitation late. You had as well, but you got in because you were at the head table. And eventually I got in, so I only heard about that.
Okay.
But I heard a lot about that.
I was sitting there
going,
it
was not impressive.
I can't believe that's what he's doing, right? It was amazing.
I was standing next to a gentleman. Matter of fact, he's the gentleman who let me in. And he said that he really had been a Bill Bray guy and that he was planning to vote for him and he didn't think he could be swayed. But he said, I'm thinking good and hard about it now because I have a different opinion about this Stahl guy.
Well, you know, that same guy came up to us at the petition drive. So, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know what we announced, because I was going to 2 events in Rancho Bernardo, and I figured we got a couple hours in between. We'll go over to the Home Depot and get a few more signatures, right?
I saw him come up to you, yes.
And he wrote a check.
He did?
He wrote a check there, right there.
Wow.
Okay, good. It looks like we've got Joe Miller on the line. Joe, are you there this evening?
I am.
Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, John?
Great. How's the weather up there?
You know, it's not bad. Fairly balmy today. We broke through that 50 below zero weather we had about 3-4 weeks ago, and we're actually enjoying the teens, so that's not bad at all for this time of year.
Yeah, now I saw something since we last had a chance to chat about CPAC and that you had been there and you had possibly announced some plans for a future race. So did you want to give us any insight into that, or what was your impression of CPAC, and how does someone like yourself or myself that's kind of an anti-establishment guy fit into there? Do they open arms, or is there a kind of a mixed breed, or what's your sense of that?
Not exactly open arms. In fact, if you're a reform candidate, that means somebody that's going to stand up to the way the establishment has just screwed up things in D.C. You can expect all guns to be pointed at you, and that means both parties. And that was really something that we experienced in our race. Let me kind of address your first question, though, first.
Sure.
We have not made any announcement for 2014. In fact, the quote that was attributed to me was a misquote. The video itself actually reflects what I said.
Okay. I
just indicated that we were leaving that an open question for 2014, that we had pretty much decided not to run in 2012 for Don Young's seat, but that we're looking at the seat against Begich, of course, is a liberal Democrat, used to be the mayor in Anchorage. Sure. And we still are considering that, but no final decision made yet. But, you know, if we do make that run, we expect the same sort of opposition that we had this last time around, and that is when you go up to D.C. and you say, look, we want to cut back government and reverse its growth, not just play games around slowing growth, but actually do some serious cutting and get D.C. out of all these unconstitutional areas it's in. You're kind of making it on the turf of not just the Democrats, but the Republicans too. And that creates all sorts of reactions. So you got to be prepared for incoming fire in the event that you're really truly standing on a reform platform.
Yeah, what I find interesting is I've come up with the phrase spineless conservatives, right? Because you go to these meetings with these people and they say espouse all these conservative values and 10th Amendment and we want to do this and that. And then you say, well, the guy that's representing us now is a rhino, right? I want to run against him. They go, oh, wait a second. Geez, we don't know about that, right? So it's kind of interesting how you start to separate the wheat from the chaff here about who is really a conservative, who really wants to see these problems fixed, and who is just kind of a go-along to get along inside baseball kind of person. And when I heard your story about your race and your background. I said, that's my kind of guy, and I'd like to get him on the show and have him discuss some of these issues with us. Now, what did you find was the one or two things that the Republican establishment did that you thought was really kind of over the top and really not productive to or fixing these problems?
Well, it was way more than one or two things, but I'll just take a couple of top items. The first thing that happened here, I'm the Republican nominee coming out of the primary, is the Senate decided to allow my opponent to retain leadership. Okay, DeMint actually in his book devotes a chapter to the process that was undertaken in D.C. And as he puts it, he was the only guy that stood up and said no. And what that meant was that gave Ben Murkowski the basis to do this the write-in campaign in the general, because she now had something to give in exchange for the support that she got from these multi-billion-dollar super PACs that came in and basically worked against us in that race. Because if she retained leadership, she could, bring the bacon home, if you will. And that was the number one thing that the establishment did, which was their sign that, look, we have no room for you at the table, Joe. And yet we still, despite the fraud and everything else that occurred up here, almost upset that. Yet the second thing, and this was really problematic, is we assisted a number of Republican entities in raising money purportedly for our campaign. And the Senatorial Committee actually used money that it raised under my signature to run ads against the Democrat. And what the effect of these ads had was, in just attacking the Democrat, they peeled votes off the Democrat that they knew would only go to the rhino that was in the race. Obviously, these left votes weren't going to go to Joe Miller. They were going to go to the gal that was left of center in the race. They knew exactly what they were doing. They tore down his percentage of support in the race, which was well over 30 points, all the way down to, I think it was 21 points at the end of the day. And all 14, 15 points of those went directly over to my opponent. So, these were overt moves at the time, not seen so overtly. Now they are, pulled off by the Republican establishment, designed to make sure that somebody that really wants to cut back government doesn't get there. They don't have room for people that aren't willing to play ball and join the team of continuing the expansion and growth of the federal government or perpetuating it. And I had no room for it. They knew where I stood, and they didn't want to see me there, and so they did what they did.
Right. So, how does that change your strategy for the next opportunity when you do make a decision? I mean, what would you learn from here to say, hey, next time I'm going to know about that stuff, and what one or two safeguards or different tactics might you try?
Well, we should have, we suspected what was going on in the general. We didn't know for a fact until we were pretty far along in the general. But still, just to keep the peace, we did not broadcast what was going on. In retrospect, what we should have done is, once we found out the shenanigans that were being pulled, we should have called a press conference and basically laid it out for the public to see. And I think that probably would have caused the establishment to pull back pretty rapidly. But that was a mistake. We should not have attempted to keep the peace. We should have just blown this out of the water, called a press conference, and got it out there for everybody to see.
So sooner than later is probably better.
2 minutes.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
especially, when you look at the other things that happened in our race, there are a number of things that Alaskans are fully aware of that were up here that saw it happen. In the lower 48, not so widely known. That the role of the native corporations in Alaska, the fact that there's so much quid pro quo going on between them and the delegation, the need to perpetuate that, and the effect that they had on the race was very, very significant. So, it was tenuous. We're working with, the Tea Party base up here in Alaska, which is significant but not a majority. And, we had to cobble together a coalition necessary to reach the point where we could actually win the race, in spite of the fraud, in spite of the establishment efforts, and in spite of the super PACs that were working against us. And we just simply weren't getting the help from the Republican Party. Now, there are some great Republicans out there, don't get me wrong. I mean, DeMint, what a stand-up guy.
1 minute.
Stood up to all of this. Willing to just take the heat that was piled on him, stood up to the caucus when they attempted to strip leadership from Murkowski, continued to fight even after the race, during the recount process. Just a real stalwart, supportive individual that I can't say enough good about. And there are a few others like that too, but it's the minority. Now, I think, what 2012 holds is we have opportunity to add to those numbers, and I'm excited about that. I think that we can add to those numbers, and in the Senate is the real problem here, that we can really change the character of what's done there. But again, considering your impending candidacy and others that have a real strong constitutional conservative background, just keep in mind you aren't going to have people that are necessarily so excited to see you when you're telling them that you look at their turf and you say, we got to cut back. We got to do something different. It's not going to be the way it's always been, but the United States has to take a different direction at the federal level.
Yeah. Now, Joe, we're going to take a short break. Can you hang on through the break?
You bet. Be happy
Okay,
to.
good. We'll be back. Todd, we'll take our break. This is Solutions for America. I'm sitting in for Rick Amato tonight. We'll be here for another 15 minutes. I want to keep Joe Miller over. He's got some great ideas and great tactics for us. So we'll be back after the break.
Hear John Stahl live every Monday afternoon from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock on KFSD AM 1450 and online at www.financialnewsandtalk.com. Check back here for additional archived programs at www.stahlforcongress.com, where you can watch John Stahl on the radio. And be sure to come and meet John at an event near you.